It all started on a typical Tuesday evening, a calm and familiar night in my suburban home. I had just finished a long and taxing day at work, and the only thing left on my to-do list was preparing a presentation for an important meeting with a large customer. As a financial analyst, I knew that the smallest details could make all the difference. The pressure to get everything perfect was always there. To make my presentation stand out, I decided to add a personal touch, incorporating a few family portraits. It was a small gesture, but one I believe would humanize the presentation and leave a lasting impression on the client. In the process of preparing the slide, I realized that I wanted to include some older photos of our family, particularly from the twins' early years. I knew these precious images were stored on Lisa's phone, so I went over to the counter where she usually left it. I unlocked her phone, intending to quickly grab the photos, but to my surprise, a notification popped up. Face ID not recognized. This was strange. I had used her phone many times before without any issues. I thought it might just be a glitch and tried again, but the same message appeared. My stomach churned with an uncomfortable feeling. Something about this felt off. I called out to Lisa, who was in the kitchen, busy tidying up. I asked her if she had changed her phone settings recently. She paused. A brief moment of hesitation before continuing to scrub the dish in front of her. "It's just for security," she replied casually, without making eye contact. But there was something about the way she said it. Her tone was tight, almost as though she was deliberately avoiding the subject. I didn't want to overthink it, so I dismissed the feeling, assuming it was nothing. Still, the nagging feeling in my gut persisted. I asked her again if she could unlock her phone for me, so I could grab the pictures. For a moment, she hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine before she responded. "Why don't I just find it for you?" Her body language seemed off. She quickly brushed her hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture she often made when uncomfortable. I let it go and accepted her offer. A few moments later, she handed me the phone with the photo already pulled up. Without saying anything, I forwarded it to myself. As I did, I couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't right. I didn't understand why a simple request had escalated into such an awkward exchange. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't push aside the feeling of unease that lingered. Lisa was facing away from me, her back to mine, and I couldn't stop my mind from racing. I finally turned to her and asked, "Why did you change the phone settings and remove my Face ID?" She froze, not turning toward me, but muttered in a low voice, "I told you, Mark, it's for security." I pressed further, "But we've never had secrets before. What's changed?" Her response was sharp and defensive. "Not everything needs to be a big deal. You're being ridiculous." Her sudden anger caught me off guard. Lisa had never responded this way to a simple question. The words she said felt like they didn't fit, and an alarm bell rang in my head. But I decided to stay quiet and not push further at that moment. Over the next few days, Lisa's behavior took on a more guarded tone. She kept her phone with her at all times, never letting it out of her sight. She started taking phone calls in another room, whispering in a way that I could no longer ignore. She began staying out later than usual, claiming it was for meetings. I tried to brush off my growing suspicions, but they only seemed to strengthen. One evening, when she left for yet another meeting, I made a decision. I activated the tracking app that we had set up years ago for emergencies. I figured it wouldn't hurt to see where she was going. The app led me to a hotel across town, nowhere near her workplace. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself that there must have been a reasonable explanation. But as the minutes ticked by, an hour, then two, I couldn't push down the sinking feeling in my chest. When Lisa finally emerged from the hotel lobby, my world seemed to shatter. She was with another man, a tall, dark-haired stranger whose arm was linked with hers. They were laughing, and she was leaning into him in a way I hadn't seen in years, carefree, radiant, and completely at ease. The way she looked at him made my heart drop. This wasn't just an innocent encounter. It was something more. The very image of them together felt like a betrayal that I couldn't ignore. I drove home in a daze, barely able to process what I had just witnessed. My mind replayed every moment of our marriage, every conversation, every glance, and every interaction. I was searching for signs, anything that could explain how I had missed this. The next week, I knew I couldn't just ignore what I had seen. I took action. I cloned Lisa's phone, gaining access to her messages, photos, and anything else that might give me a clearer picture. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The text messages weren't innocent exchanges. They were confessions of love, secret plans, and intimate words shared between Lisa and this man. It wasn't just an affair. It was an emotional and physical betrayal. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, but I knew I had to remain calm. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed a plan. I began preparing for a divorce. I liquidated assets, moved funds, and sought out a ruthless attorney who would ensure that Lisa received as little as possible. I couldn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to protect myself and the children. The divorce wasn't just about ending our marriage. It was about securing my future and making sure she wouldn't be able to take everything I had worked so hard for. Finally, on a quiet Saturday morning, I knew it was time to confront her. We were in the kitchen when I said, "Lisa, we need to talk." My voice was steady, despite the storm inside me. She looked up from what she was doing, her expression calm and almost detached. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I didn't waste any time. I placed my phone on the table and showed her one of the incriminating messages I had found. "Care to explain this?" Her face went pale, and for a moment, I could see panic flash across her features. But she quickly tried to cover it with anger. "You've been spying on me? How dare you?" I wasn't going to be intimidated. "Don't deflect," I said, my voice cold. "You've been lying to me for months. Don't try to make this about me." She looked defeated for just a moment, and I thought she might apologize. But instead, she stood up straight and said bitterly, "You're right. I found someone else. He makes me feel alive, something you stopped doing a long time ago." Her words were like a dagger to the heart, but I remained calm. "You've made your choice, Lisa," I said. "Now you'll face the consequences." I laid out the divorce plan and explained the steps I had already taken to protect myself and the children. The defiance in her crumbled, replaced by fear. She realized then that she had underestimated me. I stood up and walked away, leaving her to deal with the mess she had created. Sometimes, endings come when you least expect them, but they are often the only way forward. The story begins with the speaker acknowledging the pain they have experienced, a kind of suffering that, although intense, eventually clears the way for new beginnings. Despite the anguish, the speaker is resolute, knowing that the future is already being shaped. They explain that they have communicated with an attorney and have made all the necessary preparations, including securing the funds that are owed to them. The speaker's words are laced with bitterness, particularly in describing the woman, presumably the one who betrayed them. Her face is twisted with anger, her hands clenched into fists as if she could physically retaliate against the speaker for what is happening. The speaker is unfazed, even mocking her reaction, pointing out that she is now facing the consequences of choices she made. Her once comfortable life, provided by the speaker, is now slipping away, and there is no turning back. The speaker then reflects on a letter they wrote to the woman, Lisa, expressing deep betrayal. They had once trusted her, but she cast that trust aside in favor of another person. The speaker's tone is sarcastic as they write that the man Lisa chose over them will likely leave her once he realizes that everything she had, her wealth, stability, and security, has now been lost. Lisa's reaction to this truth is a stunned silence, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words, but none come. The speaker notes that though she is speechless, she knows she cannot defend herself because she is fully aware that her actions are the reason for their downfall. Rather than showing remorse or admitting fault, Lisa turns the tables, accusing the speaker of being the one responsible for the destruction of their relationship. She attempts to shift the blame, making it seem as though her decisions were somehow forced upon her by the speaker. However, the speaker stands firm, telling Lisa that if she wants a divorce, they will fight for it, but she will not be able to walk away with everything. They are determined to ensure that the financial and emotional toll she inflicted on them does not go unpunished. The speaker remains calm as they say, "Do what you must do, but never forget that you are the one who destroyed this." They turn away from Lisa, feeling a quiet sense of resolve. Lisa, on the other hand, stands in the kitchen, her face contorted in rage and disbelief. Her anger is palpable. Yet the speaker reflects that this is not the woman they once loved, but a stranger who would rather tear them down than face the consequences of her own actions. As the weeks pass, the divorce proceedings intensify. Lisa fights fiercely, contesting every legal maneuver the speaker's attorney employs. But the speaker had already anticipated her moves and had taken all the necessary steps to defend themselves. With every attempt Lisa makes to justify her actions, she only digs herself deeper, trying desperately to protect the life she had stolen. Every financial analysis she presented, every possible lie she told, was systematically dismantled by the speaker's attorney. The judge, seeing through Lisa's attempts to portray herself as the victim, quickly realizes that she has no leg to stand on. In her desperate effort to make the speaker look bad, she only succeeds in worsening her own position. The process is long and draining, but the speaker finds small victories in each legal triumph, which over time start to chip away at Lisa's resolve. The anxiety in her eyes becomes more pronounced, and it is clear that she is beginning to realize the full extent of her misjudgment. The life she had built on lies and manipulation is rapidly unraveling, and she is left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. Lisa's world, once full of comfort and security, is crumbling, and she now finds herself alone, trying to piece together a life that has fallen apart because of her own decisions. When the divorce is finalized, Lisa is left with very little. The house, once a symbol of their shared life, is sold to cover the debts she accumulated through her deceit and poor choices. Her lover, the man she had chosen over the speaker, disappears as soon as he realizes that the stability she once offered has now vanished. The irony of Lisa's situation is not lost on the speaker. She sacrificed her marriage, her dignity, and her family for a brief, fleeting affair, and now she is left alone, desperately scrambling to rebuild a life that no longer exists. For the speaker, however, there is a sense of quiet satisfaction. The rage and hurt that once drove them have slowly transformed into a calm sense of fulfillment. They no longer feel the need to fight, as the situation has resolved itself. Lisa is now the one left to face the consequences of her actions, abandoned to deal with the mess she created. The speaker, having achieved what they set out to do, quietly fades away from her life. Lisa is left to reflect on everything she has lost, a silent acknowledgement that she drove away the man who once loved her, and now that man is no longer in her life. The woman she once was, and the relationship they once shared, are gone, leaving only the painful remnants of her decisions.